Hi everyone. Earth Day is knocking down at our doorsteps. So today's painting, I want to share my recent painting dedicated to the Earth Day. This video is not like my usual tutorials. In this painting, instead of sharing the steps to my painting process, I wanted to share the entire creative process, how a painting flows through different stages from conception to completion. Now, all paintings start from an inspiration. For this one, it was a thought that I wanted to paint something to express my thoughts about environment and ecosystem on the occasion of Earth Day. It started with the idea of a thought about painting a burning tree, and somewhere I wanted to incorporate an earth too. So it started with my sketchbook as usual and started with just a blurb. What I mean by blurb, it is just a random doodle, a sketch that does not have any detail or any rendering. It is just putting down my thoughts on in random shapes and lines forms on a piece of paper. So that is how all my paintings, especially my surreal paintings, start, because it's not like copying from directly from a reference photo. So I started on the sketchbook and started drawing some loose lines of where I wanted a tree to be and how the shape I wanted it to be, and then how I wanted to place the earth. And then it clicked to me, why not put the burning tree right on top of the earth? Then it clicked to me, okay, when that works, then let's put the tree on top of the earth such that the tree is holding on to the earth with its roots. So now that would work out the way my conception was working, or rather my concept was working. So that's how it all started. And there is where my doodling process ends as well. Now, a lot of painters nowadays goes through a very detailed process of making an actual process of creating a mock-up in digital markup, rather, using softwares like Adobe and such. That I am very lazy about this process, and even if I try to do a markup digitally, that process for me, because I'm not so technically advanced, takes so much of time and effort that I lose my interest in the actual painting process. So I don't do that. I just start from the sketch, and that is most of my work there. Next comes to collecting reference photos. Now, this is not a real thing that actually happens on the earth. There is no tree growing on top of the earth, so I cannot find a reference photo that shows that. So what I then do in this kind of surreal painting is that I tried to gather a bundle of different reference photos and try to mix and match between them. So I knew that I needed an earth. So I browsed over the internet and I look for in specific areas like my Pinterest boards, and then Pixabay, which is a very good source for royalty-free reference photos for our artists. So I started looking for interesting tree shapes, and I found a couple of very bendy tree shapes that I like, so I saved those in my Pinterest boards. Then I went to Pixabay and looked into a few earth pictures and saved a few. And then I thought of adding in the fetus inside the earth, the embryo inside of earth, that will kind of symbolize the life on earth. So I looked up again on some photos of embryos and fetuses and pinned a few on my Pinterest boards, saved a few on Pixabay, and that's how the basics shapes were started. Then for the background, I looked into a few sunset, sunlight, or lit up background ideas for the thought. And then I again went back to my sketchbook and put all of these thoughts together. Like I placed kind of where I wanted the earth to be, how exactly I wanted my tree to shape, and the roots to go around the earth to start off with. And that is how my concept sketch is now complete, with enough number of reference photos that I will be taking help of to create my surreal painting. Next was the actual painting process. Now, although it seems like very easy now that I have reference photos and now that I have concept sketches, but there are a lot of surprises that come up while you are painting when you actually put all these things together. Now, when some painters, like I already share, some artists do a very thorough mock-up digitally, that is where the benefit of doing this process is, that there are no surprises in the painting process, because you know exactly how it will look when you put one thing on top of the other. In my case, however, after I lay down the background and put the tree on top of it and the earth on top of it, sometimes it does not work out the way it worked out in my head. The picture that was in my head, when I put it on the canvas, it doesn't look the same way. It doesn't work out the same way. Then I have to make some alterations and changes, and that is why I decided to go with acrylic paints on this particular painting, because acrylic dries fast. So if I make a mistake, I will be able to paint on top of the mistake and change it and minimize the amount of time spent on waiting for drying, or I will have ample scope of correcting at the first place. So that's how the painting now starts. Now when I paint, I always paint from backwards to forwards. So that what that means is I start working with the background first and I move forwards towards the viewer's eye. So obviously I started with the background. I blocked in the background with the sunset colors that pointed out the source of light, and slowly faded out the light from light to dark in the background. Once I had the background blocked in, then I moved on to the tree and the earth and just blocked in all of the colors. Once I have blocked in all of the colors and all of the subject matter in, now I can start working on adding the details and refining each and every area. And in the refining process, once again, I go back to the background first. I tried to adjust the colors of the background first. Then I went on to the earth and painted the fetal area first and refined the details there. Then came the earth, looking on the water and land part of the earth that I wanted to show, and painted that. Once the entire sphere of the fetus earth combo was done, then I started painting on the details of the roots of the earth that surrounded the sphere or the earth. Once those roots were blocked in, then I went on to adding more details onto my tree trunk. And in this process, I had to add in a lot of details of the light. So I had to pay very close attention to all the light, where the light source is placed at. So I wanted to put all the highlights around the light source to show that this is where the light is coming from, and this is how it is reflecting off the roots and the tree trunk. Once the ground, the earth, the tree trunk, and everything else was taken care of, then finally I started painting the fire part. And this was kind of more simpler part of the painting, because with the fire I did not go for a complete realistic look like I went for almost the entire other parts of the painting. For the fire, I went for a more expressionistic look. I went for like very bold, bright colors and lots of highlights, and I kept the paint very chunky and very blurby, and not like painted in fine details or very thin flames or anything like that. I kept this very chunky and expressionistic, because that was how my vision was looking at it. And that is how a painting flows from start to finish, and that is how I make my visions come true. Like I dream of a concept and then I put it down as a sketch and then I put down colors on it, and that is how a painting flows from conception to express it. From conception to completion. So that's how the execution process goes on. Hope you liked the painting and you learned something out of my creative process. By learning, I don't mean that you learned how to create a painting. I'm sure you have your own process. What I wanted to share was this is how I do it, and I would really, really love to know how you do it. And that is how we learn from each other. That is how we help each other to get better as artists, to help get our ideas come up and have the ideas put down into paintings, if you know what I mean. So if you like this video and if you like the thought process, definitely give me a thumbs up, and do not forget to hit subscribe so that you are notified each time I post a new painting, or each time I post a new tutorial every week, bi-weekly rather.